10, 9.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
Get ready for two guys who can't handle the truth.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
But we can. Dave, Palumbo, Chris, Aceto. RxMuscle.com presents Heavy Muscle Radio. Watch out!
Welcome to another episode of Heavy Muscle Radio. I'm Dave Palumbo, and I'm joined, as always, by the technician, Chris Aceto, on this March 4th, 2019 evening. And Chris, as I predicted at the Arnold Classic this past week, and I said, there's no way Chris is getting out on Sunday night, so we'll be fine to record the radio on Sunday night. And sure enough, you're still there.
You know, you did it matter-of-factly. That's when I knew it was going to come true. It's like I predict pregnancies with you. You predict my airline schedule. And it's true. I said, Dave, we got to do the radio show tonight after the show, Saturday night. And you said, don't worry, Chris, you're not getting out. I said, there's not much snow predicted at all. You said, you won't get out. That's always what happens with you.
I was very confident, yeah.
I actually checked the airline before I left the hotel, and it was, on time. And then right when I got there, it was canceled.
Because, first of all, our photographer, Ralph Noble, as I call him, Ralph the Weatherman Noble, was giving me weather reports every 10 minutes on Saturday night, because he's got, he drives a sanitation truck, and he had to be at work Monday morning, and he was all worried. And I'm like, well, I'm leaving 7 in the morning. I'm like, when's this weather front coming in? He's like, oh, afternoon. I'm like, oh, well, I'll be fine. But then I'm thinking, Chris is going home at night. I'm like, they're gonna start canceling flights. I'm like, first of all, I don't know if there's ever been a time you've ever made a flight that wasn't either delayed or canceled on any trip that we've ever gone on, at least in the last 5 years that I'm aware of.
I know. I'm going to check to go back at some point and see if any of those planes crashed or something. There's got to be a bigger meaning to me. Always flight canceled.
You've missed more flights. I can't even tell. The worst case, and we've talked about this before, the worst case was ever when the hurricane, we had the hurricane in New York there. Yep. And you got caught in Europe with Sean Roden.
And they said we can get you out 14 days from today.
And they were pretty accurate too, weren't they?
Yeah, we had to call up a bodybuilding fan.
Chris had to go by way of China to get home to the United States. Yep. Yeah, if you fly to China first, we could probably get you home in 7 days.
Well, that's what I did.
Yeah,
I flew over the
I'll have a sushi meal and I'll come back.
So I'm stuck in the Marriott. It's at the Columbus airport, and it's like those convention Marriotts.
I love those. I would have been. To me, that's like a vacation night. It's a vacation. Vacation day. You're just taking crap because you've been gone.
I was in Columbus a full week, Dave.
I know. Well, I told you not to go Monday. Look, I think you got to start drawing the line. You're going too many days with these guys. You're enabling them. It's like my son. We have to cut the umbilical cord. We have to he wants mama there to put him to sleep every night, and she's got to be across the hall. Can't do it.
Well, the reason I went early is because Morgan Asti, who did not win somehow.
I thought he won the overall.
No, he did, but he went to the Olympia in Tunisia, and he got second.
Right, but then he won here this past weekend, his pro card.
But honestly, when I looked at pictures, I said, how could he lose? And the guy who beat him was really not any more harder than him at all, was probably 65 pounds lighter than him, but he had wacky glutes. Oh. And it's just a reminder that, sometimes people love wacky glutes. So I said, I'll go out a full week, and maybe I'll dehydrate you from Monday on, and maybe that will get your glutes in.
He looked really good. I saw him.
If your kidney crashes, there's a new product I see out there called Kidney Crash.
The funny thing is that the amateur event, a lot of people don't realize, and I'm assuming that next year he will take advantage of this. If you win the Arnold Amateur overall, right, they give you an invite to the Arnold Pro event the following year.
I bet he doesn't know that. Oh, he'll definitely do it.
Right? Because I know that there was the Russian guy who I think was competing this year. The guy who was doing backflips on stage. He won last year. Ruli Winkler won the Arnold Amateur one year. And he got, and I think that Issa Obiad won the Arnold Amateur one year. That's showing I really am being historical now.
Yeah, so did Lionel Baiki.
He won the USA Arnold overall?
Yes, he did.
I didn't know that. What year was that?
I don't know. Right around the time, I believe that...
It really did?
Oh, yeah.
Well, it was. I had a good time this past weekend. It was relaxing. I was in my favorite hotel of all time, and that's why.
And we bumped into each other there. We didn't know. That's how busy we... I saw you. I'm like, what are you doing here? I thought you were doing like some type of interview.
Yeah, which I was. You know what? The Hampton Inn was always my favorite. Back 10 years ago when I was with MD, I found the hotel. Well, actually, I shouldn't take credit for it. The Smalley brothers found the hotel. It's the closest possible hotel you can get to the convention center. Now, you would think that the Hyatt Regency, which is inside the convention center, is the closest, but it's not, because you got to walk through a mile of hallways to get to the actual expo. The Hampton Inn is literally, you walk across the street about 25 feet, you go in the door, and you're in the expo. So it's the closest hotel. Plus, they're big rooms. They give you free breakfast. It's not that big of a hotel. You can get up and down the elevator in 3 seconds if you like forget something. Got to go back up to the room. You don't have to walk through this whole convoluted hotel. They don't have a restaurant in there, but they give you breakfast, and it's a good breakfast. They have like a continental breakfast, good food, and you don't really need anything else after that. So I love the hotel. If I could say that, I know they put the strongmen there. I think they had an extra room. They gave it to me this year. The Arnold, people who hold the rooms. I'm going to request that hotel every year. I love it. So anyway, I'm going into the hotel, and I'm filming stuff for Instagram with Cyd. And who walks in? Chris. I'm like, what are you doing here? He's like, this is my hotel. We, for some reason, didn't know that we were in the same hotel, because you're always in the athlete hotel normally.
Yeah. Yes.
Which is the, what is it? Hilton, right next door.
Do you recall what your room rate was? It's very important.
$340.
$340?
Mm-hmm.
That's how much you paid?
No, that was my room number.
Okay, I was $7. How much did you pay? Do you remember a night?
I paid for 3 nights under $600.
Okay, so if
probably
you
like
book
$170 a night.
Yeah, well, you can book it for $129 a night if you book it in October. So you can put on DavePalumbo.com. I think we should book like floors 7, 6, and 5.
And I can sell rooms.
Yeah, then we can sell the rooms. We can upsell them.
Yeah. They actually, I used to stay years ago when I used to get several rooms, because we would run the Species booth. Because if you have a booth there, I'm giving away all the secrets. I'm not going to tell anyone anything. Anyway, needless to say, I used to get king suites there. So it was like 2 rooms really, with a king bed in one room, and then there would be another room that would have like a pull-out couch or another bed in there, and then a kitchen. It was really nice actually. It's the best kept secret hotel, which is no longer the best kept secret hotel. But the good thing is that no one can get in there, because the Arnold people hold all those rooms for the strongmen. So
they're doing what they're doing. Yeah.
So that was the Chris Aceto funny run into him and not expecting it. But another thing that made the trip very easy was the flight. And normally, the only negative has always been leaving from Florida now that I moved here, is that I can't get direct flights to a lot of places, and I got to go through Atlanta. That's where I went last year. I took Delta through Atlanta to Columbus, and it turns it into an 8-hour ordeal. And if the weather's bad and you miss in Atlanta, you miss a flight, and it can turn into a disaster. So for some reason, Delta was charging $650 for the flights. I'm like, they're out of their freaking minds. So I just go to Expedia. I say, you know what, screw it. I don't have any status on Delta anymore anyway, because I don't travel enough anymore. So I said, all right, I'm just going to do a search. And all of a sudden, Spirit comes up. We talked about this last week.
Yeah.
And I'm like, $182, direct flight. I'm like, I'm booking it. Now they do have all these little hidden things, like carry-on bags, $35. You got to pay for each seat individually, $17, and I paid another $10 to cut the line. There's a whole. It's like a whole scam, but it still came out to under $250 round trip. So you can't really go wrong with that. And when I got on the flight, I realized something right immediately. No one in Fort Myers wants to go to Columbus, Ohio, especially not in the winter, because it's fucking freezing there. So the plane was empty. There was like 10 bodybuilders who go into the Arnold Classic there. And on the way back, it was just as empty. So they don't give a shit what you do. You can change seats. I had a whole row to myself both ways. And it was a 2.5-hour flight. The easiest flight I've ever done. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe how easy it was. And I was sitting next to Harold Cherry, or he was across the aisle from me. I don't know if you remember Harold from back in the 90s.
I remember Harold Cherry. Yeah,
good guy. And he had helped some athlete that got a pro card in the amateur as well. So that was, it was fun. I talked to him a little bit, and then I kind of skulked over to the back because I had about 2 hours of sleep the night before from being up editing video. Basically, my schedule was, work from the minute I woke up to the minute I went to sleep, because we would take all this video and then we had pictures, and I was uploading everything and editing all the video pretty much. Cyd was doing all the social media. Chris you were helping me with all the wrap-ups and all the interviews. We actually did a really good segment I think people are going to love. We'll put it up next week probably, called The Confessions of a Guru, where I got actually Chris, I basically put him in a Chinese torture device, and I made him tell all his secrets to the last week of contest prep. So you guys are going to love that.
We may have to do a follow-up. People says it's not informative enough. They want dosages.
I caffeinated him up like on 16 cups of coffee.
I was like on, yeah, I was really because they have at the Hampton Inn the coffee bar. They have it on the second floor. You can get coffee 24/7 right as you walk in.
Yeah, and you know who orchestrates, who put that whole thing together?
The coffee bar? Who?
Yeah, Clifford. You know Clifford, right?
No, is that the guy at the? Please don't tell me that's the guy in the lobby.
The black guy in the lobby, yeah, who's like, he recognized me from 10 years ago. He's
Dave,
like, "Oh, where have you been?"
It's insane. Talk about this guy, because you know what? I couldn't believe it. I'm like, do they want to fire this guy, or is it
He's got such a positive, great energy. You almost think that it can't be that he's got to be putting on an act, but the guy is always like this. He's been doing like this for 10 years.
What is his job? As a greeter?
He's like a greeter. Yeah, he gets paid. He probably improves their business. I'm telling you, because he's so great. I mean, he'll do anything you ask him to do, pretty much, and It's a pleasure, and like I said, he remembers me because I have this face that you can't forget. But I had brought Triple H there one year. He had worked my booth. He sat at my booth, signed pictures at the Species booth. He was nice enough to do that for me. This is before he had all the responsibility with the WWE. He was just basically wrestling at that time, and I had to bring him there to change, to put into his outfit for the I think, from between wherever he was going to the booth. Mm-hmm. So I brought him in. I'm like, look, there was people mobbing us. I'm like, Clifford, we need a place for him to change. And he's like, oh, he was running around. He was like a WWE fan. So I got Clifford to take pictures with Triple H, and so he still got him on his wall, and it's the whole thing. So Clifford will never say no to anything I ask him to do, pretty much. That's another reason I forgot that I like staying at that hotel, because of the coffee bar in Clifford. I
didn't know that he's been. It's the first time I've stayed there, and I walked in.
Actually, the year that I met Clifford, the person who was staying in the room next to me was Snooki, from Jersey Shore fame. This is right after she got punched in the face, and she had just gotten a little bit of fame. She wasn't a superstar yet, and she was dating this guy from Connecticut, a bodybuilder, and they were in the room next to me, and you know me, I'm oblivious, right? Who were we walking with that I didn't even know had a cast on his foot? Oh, Carl Lenore. I'm working with.
Would have interviewed her had you known.
Yeah, I knew her. I eventually knew. I'm walking with Carl Lenore, okay, and Cyd, and we're talking, and all of a sudden he's telling me about his surgery at his foot. I'm like, wow, it's amazing you recovered so fast. He's like, I got a boot on. Don't you see how I didn't even know the guy was limping with a boot on his foot. Mm-hmm. That's how oblivious I am. Anyway, so I didn't know that was even her. I was talking to the boyfriend, and I'm like, wait a second, this girl looks kind of familiar. Smalley brothers come running down the hall. This complete embarrassment. They're yelling like at the top of their lungs. And she was cool. Like I said, she really wasn't a huge superstar yet. And I did interview her. I got to go back and find the tapes. I'm sure the videos are on RxMuscle.
Definitely put it up.
She was doing a lot of stuff with her. They did a lot of fun stuff because remember the Smalley brothers were crazy. We did a lot of fun little stupid things, and she was good. She was pretty down to earth, and the boyfriend was like a big RxMuscle follower. So we had a good time with them. But yeah, so every year I'd go there. There was something else crazy happening there, and Clifford remembers it all. So that's one of the that was like a good almost like a class reunion type of issue. And then you were in the hotel too, so it was like perfect. It was like I couldn't even believe how fortunate. Usually you're like 25 miles away from me, and I have to try to meet you someplace. And
yeah, I'm leaving now, and then I see you in an hour and a half.
Yeah. Saturday I went to that Hall of Fame ceremony.
Yeah, you love that.
The Bob Coleman. I don't know why they make it so close to the men's prejudging. It creates stress, and I didn't get to see the last speaker. But I did get to hear Michael Buffer speak. You know Michael Buffer, the boxing announcer?
No.
Let's get ready to rumble. That guy.
Yeah, I think it was Muhammad Ali invented that.
You're right. Well, he told the story about the fact that first of all, he used to watch like boxing with his son, and his son was at the actual Hall of Fame ceremony too. And his son said to him, "Dad, you can do that," because he used to he would do these mock, he would announce the fighters like just for his son to make him laugh. And coming into the ring next is the Boston Mass. 25 wins, 0 losses, no ties, 25 KOs. Jose, the Boston Mass. Raymond, who by the way just got his hip done, right? He was walking around with a cane, but I told him, I said, I hate to tell you, Jose, you're using the cane in the wrong hand. He's like,
why?
Know. He wasn't using. He doesn't really need it. He said, I didn't really need it. I want to look cool with the cane. He doesn't really need the cane. No, 3 weeks ago he had the surgery on the hip, got the hip replacement. But he's looking good. He's looking a little heavy though. I think he's been dipping into the pizza and beer box a little too much.
Well, if you're immobile, what's there to do?
No, yeah, he has videos online of himself in the hospital stuffing his face. So it's a license to eat when you're getting surgery, right? Because what else is there?
It's a license to eat when you retire.
That's true. So anyway, getting back to Michael Buffer, his son talked him into putting together a little tape, because remember, this is in the 80s. He went to Atlantic City and he started trying to make contacts. He got a gig, I think, announcing some fights, local fights they would have there on Friday nights or something like that. And he was terrible, he said at first. And then he took 6 months off and he kind of started working on his act a little bit more. And he said, I got to come up with a slogan. And he was running all these different ones by himself. Nothing sounded good. And then he remembered something that Muhammad Ali used to say all the time, I float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, rumble, 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 whatever. What would he say? Rumble and I don't know. He had a whole thing. Come on, you're a Muhammad Ali expert. You're a Muhammad Ali fanatic.
I'm a fanatic.
You don't know.
I just watched. You know what I did on Monday? Did I send it to you? I sent you a YouTube video of, in their own words, of Ali and Foreman for the with regards to the fight in Zaire when Ali knocked out George Foreman, and George Foreman had previously absolutely destroyed Joe Frazier and Ken Norton, who had beat Ali. It was great. You know what? It was.
There's a documentary that George Plimpton did called "When We Were Kings." Have you seen it?
Oh yeah, twice.
Yeah, that's really the best one, I think.
I don't know. I thought that was the best one. That's why I believe I sent it to you. Did I?
Yeah, you did send me the link. I didn't look at it because I think we were at the show.
Yeah. So I was trying to keep my mind off the show. That's why I watched it when I was there.
Well, you were there for a week. Don't forget. So.
Came in on Monday.
You had a lot. You had a lot of stuff. A lot of time to kill.
So.
I'm trying to look up the quote. It's going to drive me crazy. Not that it matters to the story, but.
What of Ali's quotes?
The quote about you, rumble, rumble, rumble. Just float like a butterfly. Anyway, somehow Michael Buffer heard Ali say rumble, rumble in the jungle or whatever, or rumble, 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 something like that. It was part of this thing. And he's like, that's what I got to do. Let's get ready to rumble. And then he created that saying. And he actually has it trademarked. So no one can steal it from him, which is pretty good.
So you can't say it on the show, or you can't monetize it on the show?
I don't. Yeah, that's a good idea. I don't know what what type of a patent it is. Here it is. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, rumble, young man, rumble. Right before his fight with Sonny Liston, he said that. And Michael Buffer happens to be really good at impressions, too. And he did it in Ali's voice. It sounded like Ali was doing it. So he did that. He started doing that, and then he was doing it on. He got a gig with ESPN Fight Night, and that was like the highest rated show on ESPN at the time. And I guess then all these big promoters started, like Blackman started seeing him. We got to get Michael Buffer to announce the Olympia, And that's what happened. He started getting big gigs, and then he started rolling in the money. But he really was nothing. He wasn't barely paying his bills, and he made himself into this. The fact that he's a good-looking guy probably doesn't hurt. The guy's in his 70s, and he looks like he's still 50 probably.
So what is the point on? Was he inducted into the Hall of Fame?
They inducted him into the Hall of Fame, yeah, because he's a sports announcer, and that was that's part of the whole International Sports Hall of Fame. It's not just athletes; it's people who are related to the sport who influence it in a positive way. Because he goes out and does a lot of public speaking and positive type stuff, schools, that kind of stuff. He's a good guy. You could tell the guy has an amazing voice. I mean, I was listening to him give the speech. It's just you want to hear the guy speak.
Mm-hmm.
He just got that kind of voice. Some people, it's a gift. Some people can sing. He can just speak. And you want to listen to him. And he's very entertaining. He's I don't know if it's because he rehearses everything he says. I don't know, but even if he probably gave the speech 600 times and he just repeated it again. But it was good. He did a good job. And then there was another guy, David Goggins, who is amazing. Have you ever read any of his books?
No.
Aaron did. I didn't even know that. Aaron came to the Hall of Fame just to see this guy. And I didn't even know where Fairfax Hackley got him from. But he was good. I've been looking at some of his stuff. I'm going to tell you a story. He basically he gave a great speech. It was worth the price of admission there. Right now he's he's probably the greatest ultra marathon runner of all time. They run like 100-mile races. You got to be nuts to do these things. I used to run like 10 to 12 miles a day, probably for 5 years straight. It's the greatest burden you could ever imagine, having to do that every single day, because runners don't take days off.
How I used to run.
You used to run 12 miles a day?
No, I used to do when I was 12 and 13. I used to do like 3 to 6 a day every day.
That's a lot. All right, so that's a burden. You like it because you're good at it, but imagine
it is a burden. I mean, I would hate to do it, and then I would love to do it. It was just weird.
This guy. Go ahead.
I think it's just part of. It's the weirdest therapy, because I can remember to this day having shin splints, and I'd go out. I'd be 13, Dave. I'd go out on a 6-mile loop near my house, and the first mile and a half was just agony and pain because my shin splints.
Right, and then your endorphins would kick in.
Yeah, then the endorphins, and you're just like high as a kite from mile 2 through 6. I used to can't wait to get out of school to do it, but at the same time, it's funny that you say the burden. I'd be like, I don't want to do it. It's a lot of work. It's exhausting, but I guess you get enticed to that high.
Absolutely.
It's like a pump. It's like a weird. It's equivalent to a pump, but it's stuck in the brain more, right?
I think a lot of people use it for therapy. When you get this guy who's running, 20. This is a guy who'll get up in the morning and run 20 miles. He doesn't go out and run 6 miles. Like, for people who don't know running, like, most people go out and run a mile or two, Dedicated people will run 6 to 8 miles. That's like, you're a serious long distance runner. Okay? Nutcases run 10 to 15 miles or 10 to 12 miles, and then the complete lunatics run 20 miles. No, you can't run 20 miles. No normal person can run 20 miles on a regular basis every day. So here's a guy who was abused, by his parent, his father, whatever, growing up. Terrible childhood. His dad made him feel like a piece of shit, he basically said. And he wanted to just prove that he wasn't a piece of shit. So, and he's still obviously trying to prove it because and he basically he joined. He went and he wanted to join the Navy SEALs, and he was like 290. He was like a bodybuilder, but he was like a fat, big bodybuilder, And they told him, they're like, you can't go into the SEALs. You got to weigh 190, not 290. He's like, all right, I'll be back in 3 months. He lost 100 pounds in 3 months. Got in the SEAL program after like 3 tries. Did the SEALs. Then after the SEALs, he got into the Army Rangers. He went through the Ranger program. I think he might be the only guy who ever went through. He's also one of the only black guys who have ever gone through the Navy SEAls, because I guess a lot of black guys don't like the swimming aspect of it. They're in other. They're in the. You'll see them in other aspects of the military, but not a lot of African American Navy SEALs, from what I understand. So then he started seeing life as a challenge, and after he got out of the Army or whatever, the Navy SEALs, he decided that he had, I guess 6 months had passed and he gained a lot of weight back. And he was bodybuilding. He wasn't really doing any kind of training anymore. And he said to himself, you know what? I think he watched one of these ultra endurance races on TV, and he said they were going to be having some kind of championship race at the end of the year. It was a 100-mile race. And so he called up the promoter and said, look, I want to get involved in this race. He's like, the promoter's like, what races have you done prior to this? He's like, I haven't done any. He's like, well, you can't just do these races. This is 100 miles. He's like, yeah, I really want the challenge. They're like, well, you have to qualify. You want to do the world championships. He's like, well, how do I qualify? He's like, well, there's a race like next Wednesday. He's like, well, what do I got to do? He's like, well, you got to run 100 miles in under 24 hours. And he weighed 240 pounds. He's like, all right, I'll be there. So him and his wife at the time went there. He brought like Myoplex shakes and Ritz crackers. That was going to be his because you have to eat when you're doing these 100-mile races. So
I got an eating story for you. Go ahead.
Okay, so he figured out that if he broke it down over 24 hours, 100 miles, it's like basically 15 minutes a mile. So you could. He's like, I could walk this. You know what I mean? How hard could it be? So the funny thing is that these trials are done around a track that's a mile long. So you have to run 100 laps on this mile.
Crazy.
Track.
Go crazy.
Yeah, right. You don't even get scenery changes. So he basically had a lounge chair set up, and he started doing the thing. He was walking, power walking kind of, and he did 50 miles. I think it took him like, I don't know, 10 hours or something like that to do 50 miles. And he was in state of shutdown. His kidney, he was like bleeding out of his, he wasn't even peeing urine. Just there was blood coming out of him. He wasn't, because he wasn't drinking. He was dehydrated.
It's that kidney product.
Yeah, he couldn't go to the bathroom. He couldn't like defecate or anything like that. Or no, I think he started just like pooping all over himself or something like that at some point. His body was in like real shutdown mode. Everything was hurting him everywhere. He said there was not a part of his body that wasn't hurting. And he said to himself, how the hell am I going to do this? It's not. I got time, but I can't move. My body's not functioning. Remember, he was also probably 50 pounds overweight at this point because he hadn't been doing anything. He hadn't been training for this. Most people train for these races. So he said, all right, I'm going to do one more mile. So he went and went through 1 mile, and then he got through another. He's like, I'll do one more mile and one more. And then he said, at that point, that was the first point ever in my life, and I had done a lot of these, like I said, Navy SEALs and all this stuff, and I realized that the body will do whatever the mind tells it to do. The mind is in control of everything. If you could tell your mind, if the mind could tell your body, this is what you're going to do, the body will listen. And that's where he got into this whole mindset being super strong. And he believes in, you have to be suffering, If you're not suffering every single day, then you're falling into complacency. So he actually finished the 100 miles in 19 and a half hours. And then he obviously went on, he lost the weight, and he went on to and he's set all kinds of crazy records. I think he has like the pull-up record. He did like 4,000 pull-ups in an hour or something like that. It's Guinness. I think he broke Bob Goldman's record, actually, or something like that. It's pretty cool. And he does all these ultra marathons. He has all these records. And his whole theory is that like he tries to, every day that he wakes up, he tries to challenge himself. So like, it's 4,030 pull-ups in 17 hours. Sorry, it's not 1 hour. It's in 17 hours. It's, I guess, the most pull-ups in a single 24-hour period. That's what it is. That's the Guinness Book of Record that he set. I know Bob Goldman had at one point had a few of these crazy records like that too. So Bob really can relate to that. I'm sure that's why they got him in the Hall of Fame. But this is the guy who'll wake up and he'll say, you know what, today I got to run 20 miles. But you know what? 20 miles is too easy for me, so I'm going to do it, even though it's like 0 degrees outside. I'm going to do it in a tank top and shorts, and I'm going to do half of it backwards. So every day he'll challenge himself to some ridiculous, like fucking stupid thing that like no one in their right mind would do, but that he wants to say to himself, I have to do this because it's going to be so uncomfortable for me to do it. When I finish it, it's going to make my mind that much stronger.
Gosh, what a burden that is. Talk about. I mean, you can run his burden. I think we've gone past the point of a burden to like
Right? I mean, think about it. It's pretty cool. It's pretty crazy.
Crazy. Legitimately crazy. Not. I think there's something.
Yeah.
I think a therapist might be less work and more productive.
Oh,
I would go to bed tonight thinking tomorrow I have to get up and do 4,000 push-ups.
It's crazy, you know.
Or I can't be at peace with anything.
He did. Yeah, that race I was telling you about, that was in 2005. It was called the San Diego One Day, 24 hours, 100 miles. He did in 18 hours, 56 minutes. That's when he was in the worst shape of his life. Crazy. Just recently, in 2016, he... Like, in the last couple of years, he hasn't lost anything. But I guess in 16 was the last time he did all these crazy ultra marathons. He won a few of them. Music City Ultra 50K, 4 hours, 30 minutes. He's got all these crazy records. The Infinitus 88K, one of the hardest and most brutal races in the world. The Infinitus 88K brings out the toughest competitors. David won this race in a clean 12 hours, almost 20 minutes ahead of the next finisher. The guy's just like he's a mental, you know, the mental strength that this guy's unbelievable. So he wrote a few books. Aaron read a lot of the books he was telling me about. I didn't know that much about them, but I guess the latest book is called You Can't Hurt Me. Master Your Mind, Defy the Odds. And it's like a bestseller, I guess, on Amazon. I might read one of these books if I have time.
Yeah, that's, you know what? As you said that, I'm like, when am I going to read a book? Yeah. I haven't read a book. I don't think in 2 years. Is that insane?
Yeah, me too. I'm very
read books
guilty of that.
Time. My mother reads a book every 3 days.
Does she really?
She's 82. A book every 3 days.
She's got nothing else to do. That's why.
That's why she probably doesn't have Alzheimer's, and my father does.
But it's possible. My father, though, was always very creative. He never stopped using his mind, and he still lost his mind. So here's some good. Everyone always said I haven't been doing quotes of the week. Here's some good David Goggins quotes. Everybody comes to a point in their life when they want to quit, but it's what you do at that moment that determines who you are. It's true. It's true. It hurts, but that's all it does. The most difficult part of the training is training your mind. You build calluses on your feet to endure the road. You build calluses on your mind to endure the pain. There's only one way to do that. You have to get out there and run. Failure is an option. It's what you do with the failure that makes you who you are. Our failure molds us. I have failed at several things in my life. What sets us apart is that when we fail, we can't sleep at night. It haunts us until we have time to redeem ourselves. Yeah, this was a quote he ended the speech with, actually. I don't stop when I'm tired. I stop when I'm done. That's a good quote, right? I like that one. Don't stop when you're tired. Stop when you're done. He said, don't. I think he actually said, don't retire. You know, stop working when you're done. That was his. That's how he ended the thing. But that's like a take on that quote. Look, pretty crazy guy. Great speeches, though. I wish I would have taped it. I didn't know how great it was going to be. I would have put it up there. People would have loved it. I'm sure. You know what? Bob Goldman will have a replay of it, I'm sure. I got to try to get this guy on the TV show because he's that inspirational. Yeah,
I can tell by you were motivated by him, right?
Yeah, I was. You know, there's not many people that I could actually listen to who I actually say, you know what, this guy was, you know, he's a nutcase. Look, it's funny. My wife was looking him up on Wikipedia when I was telling her all these stories, and she's like, he's got the same birthday as you. I said, does that surprise you?
Exactly. Yeah,
I said, he's just a little bit more extreme version of me. I said,
yeah. Maybe he can motivate you to go to the nth degree.
Yeah, I don't need to be I don't need to kill I'm just trying to balance myself just recently. You know, I'm just trying to get away from being such an extremist. He's only 44 though. Wait till he gets to 51. He won't be running fucking 100-mile races anymore.
Now you discover your idol.
You know what the problem is with doing that? And I told this to Aaron too. I said, you can't have a normal life. You cannot have a relationship with anyone when the most important thing in every day is spending 4 hours doing some kind of crazy ultra, endurance type activity. It's just, because it's not just the time you spend doing it, it's the mental preparation you have for it. The next day, the time before you start the whole thing. So it consumes your life, basically. You know that. It's like bodybuilding. Bodybuilding consumes your life because all you're concerned with, you're always worried about eating and training and, sleeping enough and then taking the drugs.
Yeah, if someone's got a wedding, happens with, I'm sure, people you help. They're like, oh, we got a wedding to go to. It's going to screw up my training.
Right, right.
My diet, I'm 8 weeks out. How am I going to eat at that wedding? The wedding starts at 4. I have a meal scheduled at 4:30. I go to the bathroom and eat my meal.
Bodybuilding cured me of my endurance addiction because in bodybuilding, if you overtrain, you get worse. So you have to rest. So I was forced to take days off,
You were it only cured you of your duration, not your neurosis that you have to be like the best at something.
Right. But part of the problem was that I was overtraining myself, and it would have led down to a path of destruction. I'm convinced of it. There's no distance runner that's great who's not in chronic fatigue, chronic inflammation, and chronic overtraining, a state of chronic overtraining. There's not one of them out there that isn't like that because it's a sport of excess, The more you do, the better you are, that kind of thing.
You're 100% right. And
bodybuilding is this sport of like, all right, stimulate that muscle, but then you got to grow. If you want to grow, you better rest, So there's a strategy there, and that taught me balance a little bit. And then of course, I wanted to be 300 pounds. That took me out of balance. But then, after I retired, I found balancing it. So once again, I think at different stages of your life, you find different balances. I'm sure this guy is no longer doing ridiculous things, but he does. But Aaron said in his book, he does say that every day he wakes up, he tries to find something that is going to make him really, really uncomfortable for part of the day because he feels that's the only way to grow mentally. I say, at some point you've grown mentally and now you have to kind of like use all that motivation that you've gotten from, doing all these things and use it to help other people, which he's doing. He's a motivational speaker, but I don't think you have to constantly keep torturing yourself every single day. I don't think it's necessarily good for you. But I could be wrong. Who knows? Anyway, he's not married to the same woman anymore, so so much for the relationship. No, women don't like that. Women don't like when you are consumed with something that is on the priority list before them.
Well, I sent you the Bob Marley quotes about wives, right?
That was a great quote. Did I read it on the air?
Yeah, read it.
I don't know if I did read it. Did I read it on the air? I don't think I did.
No, you didn't. I sent it when I was away. Someone sent it to me.
It was a good one. It's been around before, but it was a good one. I think it's relevant. Let me see if I can find it. I got so many pictures of this Asti guy you sent me, who's a freak. Yeah. What does he weigh? Like 300 pounds?
No, 294.
That's pretty big. And how tall is he?
I think he's about 6'4".
He's a big dude. Here's the Bob Marley quote: "If she's amazing, she won't be easy. If she's easy, she won't be amazing. If she's worth it, you won't give up. If you give up, you're not worthy. The truth is, everybody's going to hurt you. You just got to find the ones worth suffering for." Good quote.
Ties in suffering to your friend, to the marathoner.
Yeah. Stop moving the phone. You're making all kinds of creaking noises. Everyone's going to say our audio sucks.
That's not me. That's the connection.
Oh, it is? Okay. Never mind. All right. Let's talk about the show because there was a show this past weekend. Oh, but I got to mention one more thing. Everyone knows, but maybe not. I don't know who listens to the show or watches all our content. But so I was talking to my wife about on the phone, and she was telling me about my son and how he's a crazy maniac. He runs around. I said, yeah, I was the same way. I said, when I was a kid, I used to run around. I used to smash my head into things all the time by accident. I was always winding up getting stitches. And I think when I was like 14, I was running home through someone's backyard and trying to take a shortcut and to beat my other friends, back to show them that I can get there quicker. And I hit my head on like an air conditioning unit that was hanging out of a window, and I completely cut it open. And I went back home and I was all upset. I was probably crying, to my parents, and they're probably like, I remember my dad saying, you got to slow down and think about what you're doing before you do it. You know, and I was so mad. He was right. You know, he was completely right that I would just blurt forward and do things without thinking, in completely, you know, spontaneous type stuff. I said, you know what? It's never gonna happen. I will never cut my head open again. It's not gonna happen. And you know, after that, I didn't really get seriously hurt. You know, I would get other little stupid bruises and bangs, but never opened my head up again after that. And I told my wife the story. I said, so look, you know, he's a little like me. I'll take credit for all the bad things that's wrong with him. Right? All the craziness. Not an hour later, I smashed my head leaning over to throw something in the garbage pail in the hotel room on the corner of a desk. It was ridiculously the way this thing is set up, because part of the desk stuck out more than the other. It's really a ridiculous place, the way it's set up they have in that room. My one criticism about the Hampton Inn. And when I hit my head, I literally saw stars. And Susie Blaylock, you know, our doctor friend, was in the room, and I saw this look on her face, and I'm like, oh shit, I bet I'm bleeding. You know, I don't know the last time I opened my head where I was actually bleeding like bad. And she's like, I'm gonna go to the CVS and get some supplies. You know, she's a doctor. I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, do you have to stitch this? She's like, I don't think you can stitch it, because it was like a crushing blow. It was like the corner of a desk. So you saw my head.
Were you worried about missing the show?
I just thought I was going to look like an idiot, which I did the whole weekend after that, because I opened my head up.
No one would notice stuff like that unless you think they're noticing.
Yeah, well, they noticed it. It looked like I popped a zit on my head or something like that. It was like, first of all, the first day it happened, that Thursday, it was like it was all swelled up. The next couple days, it wasn't swelled up. I just had a big, you know, red gash on my head. And she's like, let me put it. Why don't you just put a Band-Aid on it? I'm like, do you know how stupid I'm going to look with like a little round Band-Aid on my head?
That would notice that, for sure.
Yeah, that would. I'd rather people say, oh, look, you got into a fight or something like that, you know? That would have looked more glamorous.
Blackman cocked you in the forehead.
Yeah, exactly. Hold on. All right. So, actually, speaking of Blackman, I saw him. He actually spoke to me.
He did.
Yeah, I wanted to get into that backdrop, you know, the Arnold backdrop in the press area, and he's like, I didn't even ask him. He's like, oh, well, we'll be done very shortly, which was surprising. Maybe he's experiencing some dementia. Maybe he doesn't remember that he doesn't like me. Right? He could be. He's not a young man anymore. He might have forgotten. Who I was for a minute.
Possibly.
He's like, oh, looks like a nice young man. I'll just.
What was your response?
I didn't even. I think I said okay, or I didn't even. I don't think I responded. I was in shock that he spoke to me. So, and then I thought later. I said, well, maybe he was trying to extend an olive branch. Maybe he wanted to maybe he wanted to talk to me and just maybe put bygones behind this. But I said maybe I blew it. But who knows? And then I chalked it up as dementia. I said, yeah, he probably doesn't remember that he doesn't like me. Mm-hmm. And I just went on. It was kind of pathetic, and I didn't want to cause a scene, because every time it seems like every show we go to, we always get into a fight with someone, and so I just relegated myself to taking video on the black backdrop with the railing in the back, rather than using the Arnold backdrop that everyone else was using. It was like MD set up right there, and then it was like, I'm like, why are we always like in the relegated to like the dirtbag place?
Yeah,
to do the video.
Go do the wrap in the bathroom. How's that?
Yeah. But it's ironic that we always have the best wrap-ups, even though we have to do them in the most rural of places, primitive places.
Wrap up for the finals, and I thought it was great. That was dead on.
It was great. I'll tell you why. Because you and I do great analysis. I feel comfortable saying that. And then I shot video the whole time I was there. I don't know how I did it. I was doing everything. That's why I'm exhausted right now. I shot enough video, and because I know in my mind what I'm going to need for the wrap up when you and I do the wrap up. Mm-hmm. And so I shot video of the guys and a couple of girls that I knew we would talk about, especially at the night show. I knew who we were going to talk about, and this way, I think there's no way to better illustrate what you and I are speaking about than to show the video of what we're actually doing. And if I take it myself, I know I can get the right angles and everything like that on exactly what I wanted, even though I'm not in the most ideal seat. But I think we got some good stuff in there, and it's getting a good response, because I think you and I are very honest with our analysis. We both thought that Bonac was going to win after prejudging, and then after the night show, we basically figured out or analyzed why maybe Currie won. And like I said, it was such a close show that either one of those guys, no one's complaining about either one of them winning. It was that close.
I mean, I said on the wrap up, that in terms of, your prediction after the prejudging, was wrong. It's not a prediction. It's what I saw, and I saw Bonac winning because I was leaning towards muscularity and density. And the fact is, the judges deemed him the most muscular, dense guy in the show.
Right.
Having said that, I can absolutely see where Brendan Currie won because it was his best. He made improvements. Muscularity and density is extremely important, but so is shape, flow, and with strong muscularity and density, and that's what won the show for Brandon.
Both of those guys were in the best shape of their life, and
I agree with that.
We don't really see that much, especially from guys of that high caliber. Usually, there's always guys that are off. Like Rulli was off. Rulli looked terrible. Cedric looked terrible. I don't care. We can talk about them in a minute. They were not in shape. And so they became non-factors in that final assessment. But Currie and Bonac are two Olympians, top 6 Olympians, who are in the best shape of their life, and so that makes for an exciting show because they match up very well with each other. No one's tremendously bigger than the other. They have different structures, but both of them were presenting tremendous conditioning, striated glutes and lower lat striations, and they both are very good at presenting themselves on stage. So to me, that's like I don't really have neither one of us had any vested interest in either one of them winning. So we just wanted to see a good show. And at the end of the day, we gave our analysis after prejudging, then we gave our analysis after the night show. And I think that it was very valid. And I think that going into the Olympia, it's going to be an epic battle between these two guys again because Bonac's going to want to beat him. And Currie wants to win the Olympia now, and he's gone in for Sean Roden in his head at this point, and he feels he can beat him now. When I asked you point blank during the wrap up if you thought that was possible, you said no.
Yeah, he can't beat the Sean Roden that showed up last year.
Right.
But
speaking of that, Sean Roden wasn't looking too big at the show. Did he lose a little weight?
Yeah, he looks small.
Why is that? Is he not training?
I don't think he's training. It doesn't look to be training.
Well, that's not a good sign. Last year he was huge at this time.
No, well, last year at this time he was in the hospital.
Right, but I'm saying like a month from he was looking great. Is what I'm saying. So is he trying to like employ the Sean Ray, Kevin Levrone, methodology? Take off 3-4 months after the show and then come back and gear up for the Olympia?
This would be 5 months off so far. September, October, November, middle of September.
That's not a good sign, Chris.
December, January, February.
Is there anything going on with his health, or does he just feel that he doesn't want to train hard?
Yeah.
Well, you talked to him. You're his coach. What's the battle plan at this point? Is he going to start when he gets back?
I said, come on, go back to training. I mean, it's no need to follow some high-tech diet, which I don't do anyway, if you're just not training, right?
Right. So you basically just read him the riot act, is what you did.
No, I just said you got to get going. You got to get going. I mean, you know me, Dave. I don't force no one for nothing.
You see, here's the problem. Last year he had all the motivation in the world because he missed the Arnold. He felt like he had to redeem himself, and he wanted to prove that he could win the Olympia. Now he won the Olympia. Don't tell me he's getting lazy now.
Oh, well.
All right, I'll have to get him on the show and do some cycle. I got to get him hooked up with David Goggins. That's who I have to get him hooked up with.
Yeah, they can go for a 4,000-mile walk.
David Goggins would be like, you got to wake up at like 2 a.m. and go to the gym and train. And you got to train till you freaking, you're going to squat till you pass out. That's what you're going to do. Yeah. We're going to do 6,000 squats in a row. And when you hit 500 and you want to shit yourself, you'll shit yourself and keep going. That's how David Goggins thinks.
That guy, the more I hear of him, the more scared I get of him.
We ought to hook. There's a few guys.
Because I'm a big believer in not overdoing anything.
I know.
Like overdoing things to the anything.
You know what though? When he overdoes things, I understand his whole mindset. It's to build character. Like, he would take Roden and take him to the gym and make him...
Yeah, but he just needs the character lessons. He doesn't. You don't need to be tortured.
Yeah, but you know what? I
like
think
John McCain to say, like, that built my character.
Now, I think what he's saying is that until you experience that until you learn that your mind can control your body, you really can't do it. Now, like I said, I don't think you need to do it every single day like he does. He's just, a little kooky. But if you did it once or twice, did something where you really challenged yourself. And I've done some crazy stuff in my day, so I probably have gone there, to the point where, your brain just takes over and your body just is like becomes a slave to it, and it will do anything it's told. I mean, anyone who does 4,000 pull-ups in 17 hours, think about how fatigued you are after like 10 pull-ups, and then starting the next set of 10 pull-ups. By 3 sets, you can't pull yourself up anymore.
I'm worried about getting up on time to make my flight. That's about dumbing it down. So back to the Arnold.
So Brandon Currie obviously winning here. If you want to watch a terrific wrap-up, Chris and I are not going to rehash the whole thing here, but obviously Currie going out to Kuwait, training at Oxygen Gym for the last 16 weeks before the show. He seems to be the most productive person out there in Oxygen. And I talked to his trainer, obviously, and in the interview, if you watch my winter interview with Currie and his trainer, we learned that basically this guy has taken over control of everything that Brandon does in terms of training and posing and cardio and what he eats and when he sleeps and and Brandon likes it. Brandon enjoys, I guess, turning over control of that aspect of his preparation in bodybuilding. And he has basically surrendered to the fact that this guy knows better than he does, and he's going to listen to him, and it's working. It's a great team they got going on there. Obviously, the fact that Brandon's sequestered there sucks because he's away from his family, but it also keeps his mind focused on what he needs to do. His wife, Brandy, is completely in favor, in, I guess, support of it. As a matter of fact, she's the one who told him to go to the Oxygen Gym. I didn't know that.
Wow.
And he had his kids there at the show, who, by the way, look like clones of him and his wife. It's crazy. And I think that was the first time they had seen him compete as a pro or something like that, or maybe ever. I don't know. And so they got to see him win this Arnold, which was obviously a really cool thing. He won $130,000, which, has got to help also. That when you send someone to Kuwait for like 7 months of a year out of the year, and they're away from their family and everything they love to do, it's a nice consolation prize when you make $130,000, at a show, and you win a show. It kind of makes you feel like it's worth it.
Yeah, paid off. Makes them feel great.
Now, what's going on in Bonak's head now? Bonak's, he's very competitive. Neil Hill, his trainer, is very competitive, and that's why they're probably so good at what they do. But you really can't say that this is a failure on their part, because they looked the best that they could look. They really couldn't have fixed anything. There's nothing to say, oh, we screwed up, let's fix this next time. How do you deal with that mentally and say, hey, I just got beat because this guy was better than me? Is that a mind fuck, or is that just let's get back to the drawing board and let's focus on the Olympia?
It's a mind fuck. Of course it is. Period. Period.
How do you get past that, aside from going and running 20 miles backwards up a hill?
You don't get past it, unfortunately. Because what you wonder in your mind is, okay, are they going a different direction? That's what's in their mind right now, guaranteed.
Right, because William won last year.
Yeah, and the curveball is in their minds. Well, is the sport? And it's not. That is not the point. I don't think it's the point of Brandon's win. Brandon was a good enough bodybuilder to win the show. And if you probably polled 100 people, half would probably say, I'm going with Brandon, and maybe another half, I'm going with Bonak.
Right.
But the subtlety is, and this may not be true, is, well, Sean with the shape won the Olympia, so now they're moving towards shape over muscle, and that's why we lost.
Right.
And that's just a poison, because it's not necessarily true. I mean, you could make a reason for it.
Here's the reality: if William Bonac was 5'11" and 270 pounds on stage and had the same conditioning and shape that he has now, no one would ever beat him. He'd be Mr. Olympia.
Yeah, but that's too extreme. I mean,
I'm just saying he's vulnerable, just like Dexter was always vulnerable. Because
everybody's vulnerable.
Right.
Everyone's vulnerable.
But when you're not the biggest guy on stage and you're shorter than some of these other guys, you could win a lot of shows because you bring a tremendous look to the stage. You're conditioned. You're polished. Your presentation's good. You have a lot of muscularity. You have a lot of dense muscle. But when someone bigger comes along and taller and maybe has spread out a little better on his physique, you can lose. You're vulnerable.
Well, to support
that's
that.
the reality of the situation. I mean, isn't it?
Well, it could be. I mean, to support that, Brandon clearly has more width and a relaxed V taper from the front and back than Bonac, and Roden was wider. Than Phil, who's been extremely criticized for his.
I was going to bring that back. Yeah, isn't that why Roden, won the Olympia? I mean,
well, it's part of it because when in real life, when you're looking up and it's close, you look up and it's close, and you ask for another frontal bicep, you ask for another front lat spread, you see, your eye outside of condition is sometimes pulled towards width or V taper, and Bonac's V taper, while it's not weak, he's got higher lats and a little bit wider waist and a little bit shorter torso, where Brandon has, a bigger V taper, and he does not have a short torso. So it's to his advantage standing in the front and standing in behind.
Absolutely. I agree. So the take-home message here is that Bonac did what he needed to do here at that Arnold. So for me...
I agree.
And if I was, sitting down with him and Neil Hill right now, I'm sure we'd all be saying, you guys did your job. There's nothing else that can be done. You did it. You brought exactly what you needed to. You looked great at the show. It was just a matter of Currie was structurally a little bigger. That's it, and he nudged you out. But there's no failure here. Both of those guys, in my mind at least, it's a win in their books. Both of their books.
I can say the one who had the most impact, I think, in the lineup when they came out alone, which counts when you're judging, the one who had the most wow was Currie.
Yeah.
So before you get into comparing people, I don't know if that's because he was, had improved since the Olympia and added some size, brought up his legs, or what, or just the shape and flow. But of all the people who came out and did their poses, I think he had the biggest impact. So, first call out, you've already set the stage. If you're, if you're judging, and the first call out is those two plus a couple other people, which was the case, your mind is, okay, wow, Curry's really impressive.
Curry's is the feel-good story of the whole show, too. Come on, with the whole sacrificing, the family thing, going out to oxygen. Everyone knows the story already. You're rooting for the guy to do well. I mean, right? I mean, come on. It's a class. There's always one bad guy and one good guy. Williams, the defending champion. He was the underdog, 2 years ago. Now he's the guy to beat. So now you want to see him get beat almost. As the fans, that's just the way it works. The good guy becomes the bad guy at some point because when he gets to even Coleman, right? Everyone loved him. He beat Flex Wheeler to 98, 99, and then as time went on, now everyone wanted to see Jay beat him.
Only Jay was a good guy all the way through.
Yeah, exactly. How he pulled that off, I don't know, but yeah, you're right. You're right. But even Haney, people wanted to see get beat after a while. And Dorian, right? Everyone was gunning for Dorian.
Yeah.
So I think that's all it was. Bonac was the defending champion. People wanted to see him get knocked off. Here comes Currie. Feel-good story of the weekend. Looking the best he's ever looked. Peeled to the bone, full, denser than he's ever been. New muscle on his body. It was his day, and that's really what it amounted to. And that's why they gave Bonac the consolation prize with the most muscular award. As soon as I heard that announced, both you and I knew that was coming.
Yeah.
And I knew that Josh Lenardowitz wasn't going to make the top 6 when they gave him the Best Poser Award, too, because he probably no offense to Josh. I love his physique, actually, but I didn't think his routine was the best routine by any means. As a matter of fact, I was making fun of the music he used because it was too, like, tutti frutti for him. He should be doing heroic, Herculean, like, music, to his physique. He's one of the biggest guys on stage. And a lot of people asked me what happened to Josh, and I said, well, he looked really good, but he wasn't at his best conditioning-wise. Just like Rulli wasn't at his best conditioning-wise, although Lenardowitz was way better than Rulli. And just like Cedric McMillan wasn't at his best conditioning-wise. So here's the 3 biggest guys, in the lineup, and they weren't in shape, right? I mean, they're not rewarding guys that are not in shape. Although I will say that I would not have had Bonac. I would have not have had Rulli, and I would not have had Cedric in the top 6. That's just me, because I think there were guys that were better than them.
Yeah. You had, yeah.
I would have had your guy Rafael Brandeo in the top 6.
Me too, 100%.
Because of his conditioning, and I would have had Josh Lenardowitz in the top 6, even though he could have been a little drier. I would have had him in 6th place, but you can't reward Rulli and Cedric were just not good versions of themselves.
Yeah, I was. Rafael was in the first. He got
ripped off. He should have been. He was in the first call out, and then he somehow wound up not placing top 6. I don't care if he's a little smaller than everyone else. He was peeled to the bone, and the fans loved him because of that. And that should have rewarded. That should have been his reward to at least give him a 6th place finish there.
Yeah, I agree.
But that was the only bad. That decision was the only person who I really thought should have been in the top 6. I mean, Lenardowitz wasn't his best, so I don't have a problem. I would have had him 6th because I think Rulli should have been out of the top 6, and I think Cedric should have been out of the top 6. But they loved Cedric's structure, and I think, like you said, Rulli Winkler was top 3 at the Olympia this year. That gave him the ability to make the top 6. And at least they didn't put either one of those guys ahead of 3rd place dark horse Luke Sando. I mean, he's the most improved bodybuilder of the year. He's the guy that I think no one expected to see place as high as he did, and I was ultra impressed with him. I mean, you did his diet, so it's hard for you to talk about it, but I think that Luke really, really put the work in, and he impressed the hell out of everyone in that place.
I thought he looked great. I mean, when I saw him in England in person, which was the first time I'd ever seen him in person, when we were over there, he had a few poses, and later that day, Roden said he's going to land in 3rd, regardless of the other placings. I mean, he made that prediction right on the spot. I told Luke that like maybe 5 days before the show. I don't know how it came up, but I said he said he wanted to make top 6, and that was his goal. And I said, well, Roden has you 3rd.
That's funny.
And he was thrilled with that. I mean, he's thrilled with his placing. He just can't believe it. Well,
I saw an Instagram he did. I think afterwards he did like an Instagram live or something like that, and he was telling people how he couldn't believe, it was unfathomable for him, to kind of comprehend what had just happened, and I could understand that. I mean, it wasn't top 3 at a pro show; it was top 3 at the Arnold Classic, which is one step below the Olympia,
Yeah, his previous top 3 placing was at the Indianapolis show. So he leapfrogged kind of, from the Indianapolis show to the Arnold.
Where does he go now? Does he do another show before the Olympia, or is he going to shut it down?
He is going to Australia.
Oh, right. Well, yeah.
And then,
who else are both Bonac and Currie doing?
I don't think they're going. I
don't think so either. Yeah.
And so I think he's going out there, and he's singing like the Indiana tune after that, but you know how that goes. Bodybuilders get so exhausted. They when you're high and you get 3rd place, if someone came up to you and said, we got 18 shows we'd like to sign you up for, you were just a hit, incredible, would you like to do all 18? And say, hell yeah. You do one, you realize how exhausted you are. you just can't come on. You know, you're high from the fumes of ecstaticness of getting third place, which is a win for him.
Of course. Bonac is in the lineup. I see him here. It's Beckham, Bonac, Mark DeTrucci, Andrew Hudson, Steve Kuklo, we'll talk about him in a minute, Josh Lenardowitz, Cedric, Steve Orton, Sam Pierce, Luke Sando, Keem Williams, Ruli Winkler, Quincy Winkler, Mikhail Volikin. Mikhail Volikin, who won the Arnold Amateur last year and then obviously was invited this year to the Pro, he did the most incredible backflip summers. He did almost like a gymnast pass. They do these backflip roll, back tuck, all these crazy things. I thought he was going to kill himself. I thought it was insane to do those flips on the stage with all the oil and everything like that, but he did it. It's pretty impressive. So I gotta imagine, William Bonac's got to be the guy to beat, there. But I think Luke, might push him. What do you think?
I think that the stars have to line up. Bonac has to be, not at his very best, but I think Luke beats him on the front double. That's 100% for sure. It's only one pose. I think Luke beats him on the back lat spread. That's 100% for sure. That's two poses. And I'd probably give Bonac all the rest. But the problem is for both of them, it's really hard to replicate Ohio, in 2 weeks.
Well, Bonac had problems doing it, last year after he won the Arnold, USA. He went to Australia and he didn't win. He lost to Ruli Winkler. So
and just the flight is so long.
Right.
You're exhausted on Sunday. A lot of it is simply how, and you can't predict it. How is your body going to hold up in the next 2 weeks? Are you just going to be so tired that your body's just going to have no oomph to it, or are you going to be lucky enough where your body recovers well? And a lot of that has to do with how hard you dieted coming into the Arnold. If you had to pull out all the stops and you're just completely on your deathbed, in terms of energy, holding on another 2 weeks can lead to flatness. It can lead to flatness and water retention. It can lead to water retention, not being flat. There's so many variables due to fatigue.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I'm not saying Luke could beat Bonac. That's not what I'm saying.
No, I'm just throwing it out there because it's
hypothetical poses
right.
And if he's at his best.
If Bonac comes in off, he can beat him, but that's unlikely, but it's possible.
Yeah. Well, Bonac's off is pretty on anyway.
Sure. Now, I want to just bring this up. I always have people who send me breaking news type stuff. I can't find this anywhere to verify this, so I'm just going to throw it out there just in case. In case it is right, then people can say, "Holy shit, Dave said it." And don't forget, we're taping the show on Sunday, so it might come out tomorrow. I don't know. I don't know if it's true. I can't even imagine it's true. Someone said that Arnold was hospitalized in San Diego for stroke-like symptoms. I can't imagine that. I think he's still at the Arnold Classic, isn't he?
Where'd you see that?
I don't know. Some guy just sent it to me.
Google it.
I did. It's not coming up. He said he can't find it to verify it either. I don't know who told him this. I'm going to ask him.
I just saw him last night, literally, at midnight.
And he had the seminar this morning and Sunday. So I can't imagine him being in San Diego right now. But who knows? I'm just throwing it out there.
Maybe it was Arnold.
Maybe it was him. It was like another Arnold. Maybe it was Arnold Palmer, the golfer.
Tom Arnold, Roseanne Barr's ex was a friend of Arnold's.
Yeah. Arnold looked great to me when I saw him.
Yeah, it looks healthy for his age. I mean, not for his age. Looks
healthy. You think he's growing that beard for a movie part? Or do you think he just likes the beard now? Is that his new look?
Yeah, probably just his new look. Well, you go through phases in your life, right?
I always say, the greatest thing about winning the Arnold Classic is getting that interview with Arnold. Just to say, hey, look, I interviewed with him. I was interviewing George Peterson after his classic physique win, and narrowly defeating Steve Laureus. And if you guys watch that wrap up that Chris and I did after day one on Friday night, you can get all the nuances of that. I'm not going to go through it all, but That was the biggest thrill of the weekend for him. Because those classic physique guys didn't really make a lot of money. The prize money was really low for them. But he was like, the biggest thrill for me was getting interviewed by Arnold. I mean, where do you get to do that? He works for Optimum Cablevision on Long Island. Those people at work are going to go nuts when he gets back there, and they, because they all watched it. I'm sure it was on the live stream that he got to be interviewed by Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's going to be like a little mini celebrity in there now. What'd you think of that decision? You want to give me your? I know we already analyzed the whole thing, but now that you've had a couple days to digest it, what do you think about the George Peterson Steve Laureus battle we saw on stage on Friday night?
In pictures, I would go with Laureus. In video, I go with Laureus. My first impression, I'd go with Laureus, and bizarrely enough, I'd probably give it to George Peterson in person when they. It's just a weird. It came down to this for me. I think what I'm being overcritical of is that although George Peterson is in the classic division and has some good classic lines, he does not have the outrageous classic lines of Steve and the guy who got third, for sure, and even the guy who got fourth.
Right.
He does not have that, flow and shape and roundness that they have. Having said all that, when he's compared to all of them, he's classic enough and presents his body in a classic way enough where he beats them because he's more conditioned than them. He's got more muscle maturity than them. That's a huge one for him. Huge. And more density than them. It's not like he's, and he still fits the height and the weight. So he's you're comparing to some degree outside of God-given flow and shape. You're comparing apples to apples still, and not apples to oranges. It's not like he's 40 pounds bigger,
right,
or 40 pounds smaller. So I just don't see him. So I see him winning the show. I just don't see him as like
the heir apparent to the Olympia throne.
Yeah, the dominant. Yeah, the dominant. I don't. I see people like with potential to beat him,
right?
And it's just a matter of like when, and that's not a knock against him. It just would in classic you think automatically lines, shape, flow, which he does have lines, shape, and flow. He just doesn't have the cartoonish exaggerations of line, shape, and flow that Steve has, and the guy got third, and the guy got fourth.
Yeah. If Laureus had 5 more pounds of muscle, do you think he would have won?
Easy.
Yeah.
Because he has, bizarrely enough, in the front double, which is fantastic, and the side chest, which is fantastic. There's with great arms and a great V taper. There's a slightness to his physique. It's almost like his bone structures. It's not a hindrance. It's just he just needs a little bit more muscle. He has has the ability to look lanky in some of the poses, if that makes sense.
Who, Steve?
Yes.
Yeah, he was a work in progress. I think I think what people don't realize is he's not that wide shouldered.
Correct.
He's small. He's kind of narrow, but his waist is so small that it doesn't even matter. He still has an amazing taper. So in clothes, he doesn't look big at all. He looks like like any other guy. Whereas George is just really wide too. So even though he doesn't have the smallest waist on stage, he still has a very good taper too. It's an illusion.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm wrong. Does Laureus's physique look a little bit like Brian Buchanan?
Yeah. I think it has Brian Buchanan as with the big vacuum. Brian has wider lats than he had and is more shoulder width than him.
Yeah.
But they fall generally into the same category. I mean, he looked great.
Yeah. Is this why Steve Laureus probably will never make a really good open bodybuilder because of his lack of width?
Yeah. I mean, if you think Phil is gonna this class is his class. I mean, if you think Phil, he'd have to put on tons of muscle because of and that's the oddness of the front double. It's a crazy V taper, but it looks a little shallow, especially with the amazing arms that he's got. There's like an imbalanced look to it or something.
Which is Breon's got that same look, don't you think?
Which look?
Breon Ansley, the absurd biceps and everything like that.
Yeah,
And we love that, right? I mean, because it's who doesn't love big arms, you know?
Yeah.
Because they're real arms too. They're not jimmied up arms, you know.
Yep. That said, I think Steve is a threat to the Olympia. George is a potential threat to the Olympia. The kid who got third is definitely a threat. He's extremely impressive. Just he doesn't have a lot of muscle maturity that
you love. Courage Opara, yeah.
Yeah,
you're
crazy.
high up on him, yeah.
So I mean, the guy who got fourth has got a tremendous look too. But Courage Opara, I think, has arguably, I think that physique maxed out. As round as it could be, and as tight as it could be. The bells and the whistles would just be screaming on it.
Yeah, and of course, Keon Pearson is the person you're talking about in fourth place,
Pearson,
who just was not hard enough for the show, let's face it. Right. I would have been interested to see how he would have done in this lineup had he been at his best. I don't know how much higher he would have been. Would he have beat Steve Lorius? I don't know. He's kind of short,
I don't know. He's short, but he doesn't have, short limbs, short. You know what I mean? It doesn't have like a, quote, stubby look to him. Or,
right.
Everything's in balance and flows. I mean, if who's the guy who from New Jersey we talked about last week? He was the shortest guy with the best physique.
Marvin Ward.
Yeah. So I mean, he could knock off people way taller than him. I think this guy could too.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed almost all the classes. The reason I enjoy all the classes at the Arnold is because it's small. They're bigger than they were in the years past, but there's not a million people. The classes that have a lot of people are the women's physique and the men's physique, but they do a cattle call. So I didn't even go to the prejudging for those. They narrow it down to top 10, and then those people come back to the night show, and then so even at the night show, you're only dealing with 10 people in each class. Obviously, in the men's physique, Andre Ferguson replicates last year's victory here, beats Raymond Edwards, who has been surging, winning. He was second at the Olympia when Andre was sick, and he won a show a week before this. So Andre kind of establishing that he's the man to beat, or at least the man that's going to be very dangerous to Brandon Hendrickson's Olympia crown come September. And, Andre made an interesting statement. He only won $5,000. That was all the money they gave out for the men's physique, I guess, the title here. He's like, I'm doing like 10 more shows. I said, oh, you're racking up these shows to make some cash for yourself? He's like, no, I just like competing. Which is weird because usually guys win the Arnold and they shut it down right to the Olympia. For him, he thinks he tells me he gets better. He's like another like Milos or Darren Charles.
Yeah, give him something to shoot for.
Yeah.
Right? A goal.
Yeah. Kyron Holden was in third, Logan Franklin fourth, George Brown fifth, and Sadiq Hodzovic on his comeback to men's physique has to settle for sixth place. What did you think of Sadiq? Did you see him on stage?
Yeah, I did.
What's your critical assessment of what he's done?
Yeah, I think this is a better version of what he used to be. He just needs like the crazy, insane block, rock hard, developed midsection.
Mm-hmm.
And he would have been way higher because he's got width.
He's got width, and he's got more muscle, right?
He's got big shoulders, big arms, which creates a full pecs, wide back. So all those things create a big V taper. But, Andre Ferguson's not that wide, but the focal point is the insane abs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, and his full pecs. You could keep going and say the big delts too, but I mean, he's not that wide, and you would think, it's a sport where you're just standing and looking at judges for, a huge amount of time. So it's
abs in the face. Yeah.
Exactly.
And Brandon Hendrickson's got that. And I always say it's funny. Andre and Brandon don't really get along with each other, but they have very similar physiques.
They do, yeah, to some degree, yeah.
So
full pecs and killer abs.
Yeah.
With good, shoulder arm detail when you stand and relax goes a long way.
I agree 100%. In the figure division, we saw Cyd Gillon, our Olympia champ, finally secure an Arnold Classic victory. So now it's funny, most people win the Arnold Classic first, then they go to the Olympia and win that. She did it reverse. She won 2 Olympias, and now she finally won the Arnold. So I think she feels good about herself. That's a little validation in her book. Nadia Wyatt was second. Jessica Padilla third, Natalia Coelho fourth, Bojana Vasiljevic fifth, and of course Sandra Dragojales in the sixth position. A big upset in fitness. Whitney Jones, our Olympia champ and defending Arnold champion, she lost that to Ryle Graber, who's been around for years, and Ryle is actually retiring this year. So this is a nice way to end the year with an Arnold Classic victory of all things. And I got to tell you, Ryle's routine was way better than Whitney's, and I think really that's what won it for her. People keep forgetting, it's not about physique. The fitness the fitness routines. Excuse me. The fitness division is not about physiques. It's about 2/3 of their score comes from their routine. So the routine is really important. And I actually watched, first year I watched all the routines, and some of them were really good. Some of them weren't. Ryle's was among the better ones. I also liked Missy Farrell's, who finished in 4th place. Liked her routine a lot as well. The problem is that there's no Oksana Grishina, Chris, anymore. And so we're not seeing Broadway shows anymore. And I think that's, for the fans, and at least for me, it's a letdown,
Well, because she used to go to the Arnold and get the people right on their feet. I mean, like Surf City Select, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was crazy. We missed that. I mean, and even before her, we had like Jen Hendershot who did that. Before her, we had Kelly Ryan who did that. Before that, we had other really entertaining people on that stage. Alexandra Baris, I don't know if you remembered her. She did the rhythmic gymnastic stuff on stage. So this is really the first year we didn't have someone who was like a blockbuster entertainer, and I think that was missing. But I still enjoyed the routines a lot, and the girls put a lot of hard work into it. So I want to really congratulate all of them on that. Now, the women's physique division was won by Natalia Coelho, who has been knocking on the door behind Shanique Grant now for 2 seasons. She gets the win here. Sharonica Henton has to settle for second. Pen Pragayhai from, I think she's originally she's somewhere in Asia. I can't remember where. Thailand, maybe. I really love her physique. I think she's got one of the best physiques on that stage. I think she's just got to work on her conditioning a little bit. But she's got muscle, but it flows nice, and she's just not coming in hard enough. But I think she's going to be dangerous. I'm making a prediction here. Down the road, a lot of people were telling me, who is that girl? And I've seen her compete even as an amateur. She's really good. Britney Watts, 4th. Margarita Zamalova, 5th. And Ashley Fuller in the 6th position. And in bikini, another upset. Well, it wasn't really an upset because there really wasn't anyone. There wasn't a defending champion here. But Janet Layug wins. Elisa Piscini second. And a 3-time Miss Olympia, Ashley Kaltwasser, who I thought was going to win, finishes in 4th with Marsha Goncalves in 5th. And Lorelai Chapados in the 6th position. So terrific Arnold Classic weekend. The overall men's amateur was won by, of course, your guy. Was it Martin Asti? Is that his first name?
Morgan Asti.
Excuse me.
Former French strongman winner.
He looked familiar to me. I thought he was a strongman. He did do strongman competitions. You're right.
Yep. Because, he sent me a video of him training. What happened, I met Morgan half a year ago. And he had some injuries. I forget, Dave, I don't even remember what they were. He hadn't been training, and he was small.
Right.
And he just exploded, I'm going to start training. And then, the weights, he's not doing cables and angles. He's doing colossal,
right?
Dumb, massive weight. He weighs 300. So for him to do, 300-pound bent over rows is a joke.
Right. He's probably lifting Atlas stones over his head for.
He's 300 on almost 300. He was 294 at the weigh-in. So 3 weeks out, he's 320.
Unbelievable. But he's 6'4" too, so that's about right. And not to leave out the strongman, I love watching. One of the things the Arnold people do is at the night show on Saturday night, they always have the last event of strongman. And this year it was a little anticlimactic because Brian Shaw had hurt himself earlier in the competition, so he really wasn't a factor in the final event. Usually the final event decides who's going to win the whole thing. And the mountain, Hop Thor Bjornsson already kind of had it locked up pretty much. But This guy is enormous. I mean, they were lifting this stone over their head. It was like 400 something pounds, and you saw it. One of the guys dropped it, and it had never gone off the stage before, and this thing went flying off the stage and came within probably 10 feet of hitting Arnold.
Yeah,
and Arnold jumped out of the way.
Arnold!
Arnold almost killed himself jumping out of the way. It wasn't. Maybe that's what caused his health problem. the stone from coming off the stage. It was scary because to see a 400-pound stone coming off the stage, you don't even realize how heavy it is. But it's so heavy that once it gets momentum, like when a guy throws it off the top of his shoulder and it hits the stage, it just keeps going. You can't stop this thing. It's like Thor's hammer. You get in the way of that thing, you're getting crushed, man. No one's putting their arm out and stopping that thing from moving.
Those guys were lifting it onto their shoulder, and it took them, I think, like 8 or 9 people to lift it up to get it onto the stage.
Think about a 400-pound stone.
Yeah.
That's nuts. And it wasn't that big, so it must have been really dense, I love that stuff. I think the strongman's great. Anyway, so Hafthor Bjornsson repeats as champion. He won last year. He'll be going for the world's strongest man title a little later this year. Obviously, Brian Shaw's won 3 of those, I believe, already. So, they brought back all the former Arnold Strongman champions, Mark Henry and Derek Poundstone. And, one of the guys who won it 6 times or something like that is Runas Savickas.
Yeah.
If anyone remembers him, he was this big Lithuanian guy with the biggest gut you've ever seen. He looked like he was just a fat guy. The strongest guy I've ever seen. He did some insane lifts. Just massively strong. Since he's retired, which is the smartest thing he's ever done, he downsized. He went on a diet. I saw some Instagram picture stuff of him, transformation photos, and he's basically got himself looking like a bodybuilder now. This guy, his face is so different looking than from when he competed. He looks like a little kid now. It's unbelievable the transformation this guy made. I mean, he was literally a fucking fat slob looking. That's how he looked. And now he looks like he could fucking, compete at any bodybuilding show. He looks great. He's tight. He looks healthy. The transformation is mind-boggling. That his midsection could be as tapered as it is now, given what it was, just a couple of years back.
Yeah, no. What was the total amount of weight dropped?
I don't know, but he looks unbelievable. I thought he was just one of these guys. That's the way he is. These guys. They're just big, stocky kids, and the whole life they get made fun of because they're too big, and then they find, strong man. I'm strong. I'm gonna embrace that. But then when they stop doing it, they're just fat guys again. It's like the William Refrigerator Perry, but not so. I don't know if he made himself get that big and heavy just to be a good strongman, or if he just said, you know what, I don't want to die a young man. I'm going to fucking get myself in shape, and he just dieted his ass off. Oh. But it's pretty impressive, I have to say.
Maybe he's doing the 50-mile walks like your friend.
Maybe he's training with Goggins, David Goggins.
I can't wait to get home to walk. I have not. I was stuck in the hotel for the whole entire week. I walked nowhere except to find you. I didn't get out. You know what I mean? No wonder why I caught the worst cold ever.
Yeah, you were breathing all over me. I'm dreading. I'm dreading that I'm going to get it.
I was next to Jose, and at some point he wanted to know where I got that cold, which was a way of him saying, "Don't breathe near me."
I'll leave. We got to wrap this show up because it's getting too late. But I'll leave the show with a great David Goggins quote, and it's so true. He says, "It's easy to be great nowadays because everyone else is weak."
Oh my goodness!
Is that a great quote?
Well,
anyone is willing. In other words, anyone is willing to actually suffer a little bit. You can be great now because no one wants to suffer anymore.
It's a horrible commentary.
It's true though, unfortunately.
I know, but I tell my kids all the time, you can get ahead just by being on time. It's an insane concept. Yeah. Just by being on time. In other words,
show up.
That's lowering the bar a little bit.
Yeah.
It's easy to be great because the competition's because nobody's doing anything. That'd be like winning the Arnold and having 8 of the 9 guys all being off. How enjoyable is that?
Yeah. I love this quote. This is how he ended the seminar. "I don't stop when I'm tired," he says. "I stop when I'm done."
That's a very good one too.
Yeah.
That sounds very Muhammad Ali-ish.
Yeah, and he even changed it a little bit. I think
That's
he said
very good.
He goes, don't retire. Don't. I think he said, don't retire when you're tired. He goes, retire when you're done, or stop when you're done. And I think he changed it a little bit, but it's true. In other words, don't let people tell you when it's time to stop. When you're done doing what you got to do, then you stop. That's all.
Yeah.
And on that note, remember, with Heavy Muscle Radio,
the truth hurts.
good night, everyone.